Hey folks, how's it going? Hope you're excited. We only got a few more hours until league start, so I think I'll drop one more video on you. I know I've been making a lot of content. I hope you've been enjoying it, but I am still getting some requests for a very specific type of content. In this case, many people asking me about my initial plans, my league start plans, especially pertaining to day one strategy, the things I plan to do on day one, mainly on one of two fronts, either Poisonous Concoction leveling. People are asking for a little bit more detail on that goes a bit beyond the leveling portion of the guide, or about my Atlas passive strategy, the initial unlocking of the Atlas and how I plan to, complete my Atlas. And it so happens I am employing a different plan that I've never done before, and I think it'll go over very well. So, even if you're somebody who's not that interested in Poisonous Concoction, if you've absolutely decided on doing a different leveling strategy, then by all means skip to the appropriate timestamp. But if you are someone who's planning to use Poisonous Concoction, whether it's through my guide or any guide, or if you're even remotely on the fence about it, or if you simply just like to learn a little bit more on it, then I think you can get a lot of value out of the first half of this video. So let's get into it. The first part, here we go. It's about Poisonous Concoction, and just real quickly, get this out of the way. Do I think it's viable? Do I think it's good still, even after testing a bit? Yes, it absolutely has my seal of approval. It's even better than I expected, just on the initial impression of some of the nerfs that did take place. So life flask charges are going to be a bit more questionable, a lot more questionable perhaps. And then of course the loss of AoE from the first ascendancy point, traded in for Wither being baked into the build, which is nice. It's really cool that I was able to set up the nerfed parameters in 3.20. I've been practicing Poisonous Concoction a little bit, leveling through the campaign. Of course, I already made a video kind of showcasing it in a T15 map on my Ruthless with Gold character. It wasn't all that geared, of course, and it went very well there, so I wanted to check it out in the beginning. And so what I've done is, instead of taking the first ascendancy point, I simply skip it and trade my Poisonous Concoction gem in for a quality Divergent Poisonous Concoction, and this effectively replicates the new first ascendancy point in every way, except slightly less powerful because there's less chance to apply Wither and all that. And then as for the life charge issue, well, I just simply didn't use life flasks. I don't have any life flasks at all. In fact, I just left 2 flask slots completely empty. So this absolutely passes the test, goes way above and beyond as far as testing is concerned for getting a sense of what it will be like in 3.21. Of course, the Poisonous Concoction actually received a little bit of a buff on the back end with its scaling of instant damage applied. So in every way, shape, or form, the skill will outperform what I'm seeing currently as I level through the campaign. Some of this footage was on Twitch, so you can check one of my latest Twitch VODs to see. It was absolutely outrageous. It's still so powerful, even with no life flask, even with doing 30% less damage or whatever by throwing poison concoction with no life flask. You're still just decimating map act bosses and in a matter of seconds, one-shotting, two-shotting, or one-shotting basically everything. Just using a vitality gem instead of life flasks completely covered that end, no problem whatsoever. So let's get into the actual nuts and bolts of Poisonous Concoction levelings now that I've hopefully convinced you, at least that it's not a dead skill at the very least. So I have the last tree of Poisonous Concoction, but before we go there, I'd like to introduce you a couple changes to the PoE that took place on the leveling portion of this guide. So you're going to want to go back to my original League Start video and re-upload the new path of building. There are 3 major changes that I've incorporated in here. I've added Arctic armor in. Now this is basically for free because when I made the guide, I was trying to push it out. I wasn't terribly worried about being super comprehensive on the leveling portion. I had a bunch of free mana reservation to spare, enough to just put in a 25% aura with no questions asked, with still 95 unreserved mana, which is perfectly fine here. And it so happens Arctic armor is a terrific choice for Poison Concoction. A terrific synergy, especially with War Banner, where you want to drop the banner down with the stacks and then just stand there and tank spamming Poisonous Concoction for about 2 seconds with free adrenaline at that time. Arctic armor will help protect or make you extra tanky in those moments. You'd be surprised, Arctic armor's physical and fire damage reductions kind of apply even when you're blasting maps, because typically you don't actually get hit except for that very split second where you're standing still and casting. So it is a very underrated aura indeed. It also gives you 100% freeze immunity, which was one of the more recent changes, which is just a terrific addition. So we're going to be incorporating Arctic armor somewhere in the middle of the campaign or late portion of the campaign, right around the time when freeze starts to become a little bit threatening. So great news on that. The other couple of things that changed here is the swapping of the Wretch Belt in for Feast Bind. Now, Feast Bind and Famine Bind plus a Orb of Fusing combined with those two belts creates a Wretch Belt, and it's something I typically use. I actually usually get that belt somewhere around Act 5 or Act 6 because it's such a quality of life with the increased flask duration on the double Quicksilver, and it gives a lot of life and cold res and whatever. But in this case, with the changes coming to Poison Concoction, whereas the Wretch Belt actually reduces the number of flask charges gained, half of its counterpart, Feast Bind, increases flask charges gained by 50%, which is absolutely bonkers amount for a required level 11 belt. It's going to be one of the cheapest unique belts on the market, I promise you. I always buy this belt without question 1 or 2 chaos maximum, and then I create the Wretch Belt with it usually. Well, I'm not going to create the Wretch Belt this time, assuming that the flask charge acquisition and keeping them sustained on the life flasks is somewhat of an issue. This, of course, will have terrific ramifications for Quicksilvers being up more often, as well as whatever other flask you're using. 50% increased mana reservation rate is nothing to snuff at. People quite often overlook that stat early in the campaign, even early in maps. That is quite a useful stat indeed. Doesn't have much value otherwise. But there are a couple terrific corruptions you could put on this. You should take a look at that and see what your options are there. So we're going to add the Feast Bind, and you may want to trade this out for something better, later on, like yellow maps or something. Because after, around yellow maps, if your life flask sustain is totally fine without it, definitely going to want to trade it out. But anyway, the third change is the Overflowing Chalice. So I swapped the Magic Sulfur Flask in for the Overflowing Chalice, which is pretty easy to get your hands on early in the league. Its benefit, as you can probably tell, is to dramatically improve flask charge recovery for your life flasks, not to mention Quicksilver flasks as well. And it's still a sulfur flask, so the main reason I choose a sulfur flask is just for more damage. Just as you're doing the end of the campaign and white maps and yellow maps, just having more damage seems to be more important than having more defense to a certain extent. So those three things, the Overflowing Chalice, Feast Bind, and Arctic Armor, are pretty significant changes to the leveling portion of the tree. So with that out of the way, let's drop it down. I have the skills lined up right. I got Poisonous Concoction, the Poisonous Concoction items there. And this is how I plan to go about leveling and why I'm doing some of those things. First off, one major difference between 3.20 and 3.21 that some people are concerned about is the loss of 10 life on hit and 5 mana on hit as a Claw Mastery that we typically go for. Now, that's a super amazing quality of life to get that early, and of course I would normally get it. It's gone now. Not really a big deal because it's not like you're not going to run a mana flask this early on. You don't even have enough flasks to cover everything anyway. So gain 4 mana per enemy hit with attacks if you've used a mana flask in the last 10 seconds. You don't even need an enduring mana flask. Literally any garbage mana flask, just so you can trigger it every 10 seconds. 4 mana on hit completely covers the mana on issue. Trust me, I've been leveling in the campaign. No problem there so long as you have this activated. And as far as the life is concerned, yeah, losing 10 life on hit can be kind of rough. It makes you think twice about using Blood Rage starting in Act 2. However, we have all kinds of mana reservation to spare super early anyway, so why not just purchase a Vitality Gem and level it, for the first couple of acts. Not a big deal. And that completely covers the issue of life on hit right there. So between Primal Spirit, a Mana Flask, and a Vitality Gem, which you absolutely have the reservation for, there's actually pretty much no value. It almost makes me think twice about taking it even in former iterations, because you are obviously taking a few questionable points to get that. So what we're going to go for instead is straight down to all the damage and the poison. And of course, the second you get Toxic Strikes in this Poison Mastery, your damage is basically double or triple at that point. Now from there, I'm going to go for Onslaught next. Most likely going to go straight for Onslaught because it's not going to be on the gem. And we got a new mastery, which is really great. So whether your helmet has more evasion or more armor, you're definitely going to want to have this mastery point anyway. I mean, it's just crazy. Either being immune to poison or bleed is amazing for one passive point. Absolutely take that. And then, of course, I'll probably get Field Medicine and Flask Mastery, whereas in the campaign, in my mock leveling experience, I have no life flasks at all. Of course, this is going to benefit greatly for the 3.21 iteration of Poisonous Concoction. And then, you know, I'm going to try to wear a chest piece that doesn't have any life on it so I can get some crazy amount of % life. That's going to be really nice. So those are the next points. Moving on from there, I think the next choice will be getting either 10% movement speed out of combat or 10% movement speed in combat with phasing baked into the build. Sometimes both will be up at the same time. Movement is the king stat at this point in the game anyway. So definitely the way to go there. After that, probably going to do increased flask duration for, again, more focus on movement with Quicksilver flask lasting longer. Recover 4% life when you use a flask. It's going to be crazy. At this point, I probably can easily drop Vitality Gem. No problem, you know, at any point after that, I imagine. And then I'll just get more life in general. Increasing my total % of life will be really nice with this mastery here. Getting a little bit of stun resistance and getting a little life regen after using a life flask, of course. After this, probably going to go straight for the poison, get more poison damage. And then you're going to notice around this point, assuming you don't have accuracy on gear, your accuracy, you're going to start having much lower hit chance. Okay, you're going to start out leveling your hit chance. So this is going to be super potent, getting the all resistance for very cheap, not many points, combined with the accuracy. Very potent cluster here, since we're already right here. And of course, you know, I would probably take that after getting the damage, though, because I'm all about the damage. Whoa. That was weird. Chris Wilson spying on me. Okay, then after that, I think we're going to jump straight into Fatal Toxins and Poison Mastery. Yeah, I mean, the mastery is actually not super strong. It's good. It's worth taking, though. And then, of course, we're going to go from 5 projectiles up to 6. And, yeah, I'll just get some more all reds. I just realized I didn't mention, probably I should mention my links. Now, the links are over here. These are, I think, is going to be the best 5 link. The 6th link will be Deadly Ailments, if you get it. You'll notice that greater multiple projectiles not in here, which means I'm only casting 5 projectiles or 6 with multi-shot. I think this is a very good decision to do that in combination with the changes to the life flask charge issue, combined with having probably 0 increased area of effect, on at least until you start qualitying up your primary gem. So with that in mind, you can't overlap much more than 4 or 5 shots anyway. So just volley by itself, possibly greater volley and lesser volley, you know, both volleys for 7. It is very tightly packed, but I don't know, we'll have to see. You know, this really isn't a bad setup anyway. Still does tons of damage, trust me. As far as my initial links in Act 1, as we unlock Poisonous Concoction, I'm going to go for Poisonous Concoction combined with lesser multiple projectiles, and then, of course, volley, lesser volley. So it will still be 5 projectiles. So essentially what I'm saying is the goal for Poisonous Concoction, assuming you don't have any increased AoE, really, is to kind of stick around 5 projectiles. Maybe 6 with multi-shot. Don't go any higher than that, because it's not going to be that valuable outside of just strictly clearing maps. But for me, you know, map clearing is already so easy anyway. You might as well just kind of help the build as much as you can, you know, against bosses and whatnot. So that is where we're at there. Let's move on. Almost forgot to mention earlier, first going to be taking Nature's Reprisal for the Withered on hit. This is going to give us so much more damage. You don't even have any idea. You have no idea how good that is. It's going to give us so much more damage. And then I think going Master Toxicist is good. Going to be, again, essentially another 20% damage on average, combined with Poison Proliferation, and then that mastery combined, this mastery combined with this Ascendancy is super strong combination. You could go for Nature's Adrenaline first if you really want to focus on the flask charge situation. But anyway, it's going to be part of the 3rd mastery regardless. But we're not quite there yet. Let's see, we're right here. All right, next move is going to be a respec time. So we're going to respec out of these projectile points here, and we're going to respec out of field medicine. We're going to dump all those points into a far, far, far superior cluster up here at the top. Now, you could go for this cluster super early on. I decided not to, though. I decided to wait. And, you know, we're saving a bunch of points doing this. Also going to have a couple extra points to unlock life on hit, mana on hit, and leech. So at this point, you can definitely drop your mana flask for sure. Again, all the way up to this point, I will probably be using 2 life flasks, a mana flask, and 2 quicksilver flasks will essentially be what I'm using. But if I drop the mana flask, I can start using a utility flask, whatever I can get my hands on. I think it's going to maybe be like, probably going to use a granite flask first, and then swap over to a sulfur flask later on. Okay, we get Blood Drinker for some more life as well. From here, you're going to basically, essentially, you unlock Arctic Armor right here with this reservation here. 8% increased damage for each of your auras is pretty big. I think you got 4 auras in total. The banner does count. 3 auras and a herald. There, yeah, that would be it. We'll probably not have vitality anymore. You can see with this setup, we have 95 unreserved mana. With Arctic Armor. And as you can see up here, you cannot fit Arctic Armor until you get this cluster here. And then going up here, 1% life per withered buff on each enemy you kill. You know, there are some options. I think, honestly, guys, I think it's going to be absolute overkill on the recovery. This one might actually be smarter. 5% chance to inflict wither. 5% chance when you inflict a withered, you inflict 15 wither buffs instead. Might be the better play. Of course, later on... Oh yeah, I think it's always going to be between one of those two. Conversion doesn't really do anything for you here. So either if you want to focus on the recovery, it's this one, or if it's on the damage, then it's the better withered application. Going up here, it's going to help out with the attributes, just generally speaking. Really nice timing to help with the attributes. And probably help you kind of maybe not take beef, perhaps. I don't know. We'll see, depending on where you're at there. All right, so there's that. After that, here we are getting towards yellow maps at this point. Okay, getting a yellow map. So the next lab, the final lab, is getting unlocked here. You know, for this point, you could go into Master Surgeon if you want. I think I'm going to be planning to stay in Poisonous Concoction for a while. I'm going to get more out of the magic utility flasks, I think, a little bit more. Really just for the Quicksilver flask, I guess, at the end of the day. But, you know, if you want to go straight into Master Surgeon instead, no problemo. At this point, the focus is on trying to cap out accuracy again. We're going to be running into an issue with accuracy. Is going to start falling well below cap, so getting that out of the way. And then as you're getting into yellow maps, which is where we're at around here, going from, what is it, 29% spell suppression to 100% spell suppression if you have the shield recommended in the guide, is going to dramatically increase your survivability. And somewhere around this point, you may also want to swap out the haste for a grace gem. Also, for the record, this shield is a tier 3 shield. It is very easy to purchase in Ruthless, and Ruthless with gold. I assume there's going to be tons of these floating around. I don't think anybody ever talks about this shield. Shared Suffering is a special modifier that essentially replaces elemental ailment immunity. Essentially, it does, with the exception of freeze a little bit. But hey, if you're running Arctic Armor, well, you've covered all your bases, basically. What this does is whenever you get elemental ailments on you, literally the next damaging attack that could already be in midair, by the way, will remove all of those elemental ailments on you and put them on the enemy, in fact, which is a pretty big deal when you're getting inflicted with chill or shock. And this also even counts for like chilled and shock ground effects. So if you run across shocked ground and you fire poison projectiles, you're then shocking the enemies. Pretty insane, actually, even with chaos damage, indeed. So this shield's incredible. It has tons of evasion, energy shield, and also 40% increased duration of ailments on enemies is even more powerful now, given that we lost some poison duration from this previous patch. And then even the 5% chance to suppress spell damage literally is the difference between like 98% and 100% spell suppression. So an incredible addition to the build. Highly recommend you getting your hands on that shield ASAP if you're running. The chest isn't quite as important. You know, the chest, you may rather be running a Tabula or some other rare that you get 5 linked more easily. Cherubim's Maleficence is good in the end, but it's not that amazing. And you're obviously not going to have the Covenant at this point anyway. Malagaro's Cruelty is super strong. Get it as soon as you can. You can drop Blood Rage whenever you get it, and Aggressive Bastion is an amazing anointment. You can look it up if you want. Thief's Torment, I may or may not go for this, but to me it's just the easiest way to fill out the build. But it is obviously a very good ring and helps you not have to worry about your other rings. So a lot of uniques in here, obviously. I'm a player who likes to just pick up uniques and not have to think about gearing up those items slots for a very long time. That's how I like to play. So I like putting in cheap, fairly easy access uniques early in the game whenever I'm leveling and trying to get through the campaign. That's how I like to do it. Otherwise, I get stuck in the hideout trying to level and re-level and rejig all my resistances that I find this random pair of, this random helmet that's a little bit better than the previous helmet, messes up all my links, messes up all my resistances, and I don't like getting shaken down by all that. So just, figuring it all out. You could probably resonate to that a little bit. Let's move on. After the suppression, everything's done. The Eternal Lab is done. Again, you can go Master Surgeon if you want. After that is kind of interesting. We do a respec once more. Going to drop the 15% max life. At this point, you're probably going to have life on your chest anyway. We're going to drop this cluster. It's going to be a little hard to deal with, but I think you can do it probably. Going to have more resist than you need. And then down here at the bottom, some pretty potent nodes here. These two on the left give you a ton more damage, and then this one gives you endurance charge on block as well as aggressive bastion. We'll put endurance charges into the build when we already have immortal call, which will be set up nicely. A lot of extra block and damage essentially down there. And this is the final iteration of Poison's Concoction. It does a lot of damage. Let's see where it's at. Just somewhere on a 5 link, it's somewhere around 3.5 million, and if we put deadly ailments in there, you're looking at almost 5 million DPS right there on just 6 projectiles, with the life flask counted, of course. So as far as skills, just to kind of go over these again, I really like this 4-link Ancestral Protector and Shield Charge together with faster attacks and Calling Strike will make for a pretty potent 4-link. You drop Ancestral Protector, you get more attack speed. Drop it on the boss as he's around 12% life. It just dies instantly. Super, super cool. This is a very good 4-link too. Kind of a unique setup here with Temp Chains cast from damage taken. It's going to get Temp Chains onto the targets where they matter, because you're going to take damage from them. They're going to be harder and have more life. And the War Banner is going to, with increased duration, this is essentially a pseudo 3-link combined with a 2-link. In 4 gem slots, the War Banner and increased duration together, and then the 3-link with increased duration is just nice quality of life there. Haste, Herald of Agony, these auras are not impacted. Malevolence here is not active, but an option there too. Plague Bearer, this will be your shield setup with the 3 slots, Withering Step, increased area of effect, and Plague Bearer. Obviously, those are the pretty quintessential 3-link that you'll probably want to put in your shield. All right, so that's basically it for Poisonous Concoction. That is my plan for Poisonous Concoction. I'm going to take this all the way into probably my Eater of Worlds and Exarch kills at the very least. May even do like Maven and I don't know. I never do Uber Elder. I don't even know how to do that fight, so probably just buy that one. Definitely going to do like all of the bossing map invitations, like all 10 bosses at once. Probably will even do the Formed with this setup. Maybe nothing more than that. I usually don't go much beyond that. I just buy carries after that. But if you're somebody who is more akin to bossing and you know how to boss and you're good at it, you can absolutely do just about everything. I mean, I wouldn't do the feared on this, of course, but basically everything else you can probably do almost. All right, so let's talk map atlas strategies. All right, we're switching over to a different topic. Here we go. This is my Atlas strategy. So I have a very, very good plan for the Atlas strategy. I think you're going to like this. First of all, a lot of people wonder, well, what league mechanics are you going to do as you begin leveling the Atlas? Well, Essence is the only one that's really any good. Harbinger is all right too because it'll help drop some maps. But in my case, I want to go Wandering Path because I don't really want to spend any extra time with league mechanics. I don't want to do the Crucible League mechanic. And a lot of people don't want to Poisonous Concoction because, oh my god, you lose the weapon slot. Aren't you just going to be replacing your weapons constantly anyway? Like, what does it even matter, in my opinion, up to the point where you're in high-tier red maps, basically. So I'm not going to be touching the League mechanic outside of it giving me extra experience or something. And maybe, just doing it to explore it a little bit. But my plan is to focus entirely on Atlas completion without having to go on to trade and purchase any maps, except maybe a couple unique maps at the end. We're going to be really focusing on Keurig mission chance acquisition, I guess you could say, as well as map drops, Jason map drops. A Wandering Path setup is going to be terrific for this. So a first route here is basically 1, 2, 3 into Wandering Path. We're going to go straight up into a couple of Keurig missions here. I'm not going to take Expert Resonance. You'll see why in a second. Next 2 points, we're going to go left here, and the reason we're going to go left is because later on I'm going to take these Keurig mission chance nodes, you'll see. And then number 3 here is go straight to Wandering Path, and this is going to be a very strong start, I think. Now, Wandering Path makes all small nodes double in impact. Now this has a huge impact on your map sustain. For example, you can see down here over on the right hand side, it's a 6% chance for map drops to be duplicated. That is all of these nodes here. Very good. And then 36% chance for one monster in each of your maps to drop an additional map. Now if I take off Wandering Path, these nodes are suddenly only half value, and this one especially, adjacent maps, is huge, or additional connected map, because you're trying to unlock your atlas. So you need adjacent maps to be dropped. You can't just drop maps. You need new maps to drop that you haven't done adjacent to the maps you're currently on. And that's the only way to unlock your atlas, really. So this is the very beginning part here. From here, I think I'll very quickly get 4 points right here for more Keurig Master Mission chance. And we're already up to 8% chance. By the way, you can only get up to 10% without Wandering Path in total. So very important to see that. Then we're just going to cover these two here. Of course, these are some of the most profound nodes here, and we cannot get the shaping nodes, so a little bit lost there, but definitely worth the Wandering Path route here. Notice, Wandering Path makes maps harder, but only if you're taking the top row. It doesn't actually make the maps harder if you're not doing that. So if you're worried about making the maps harder, you can evade that issue by not taking the top row. Still get a lot of value out of it. From here, 2, 3, 4. I think the next thing we'll do is get the remaining increased chance 1 tier higher. Now, with no Wandering Path, maps found have 80% chance to be 1 tier higher. This is 100% chance without Wandering Path and all the shaping nodes. So we're going to have a little bit less on there. That's unfortunate, but definitely worth it in the end. Boom. Keurig now finished 14% chance to grant an additional Keurig Master Mission on completion. Now, we do not get this notable here. So that's fine, Who cares if we don't get an extra Keurig Master Mission every day? We're talking about day 1 or day 0 here, essentially. So that's fine. And this right here, my friends, I think is an absolute banging Atlas strategy for initially focusing on unlocking your atlas. It only gets better from here, but I can't really imagine a better way to spend the first 42 atlas passive points if your focus is on the long game and just getting through the atlas ASAP. Now from here, our focus is going to want to be to drive this 56% chance for adjacent map. We're going to drive it up to beyond 100%. In order to do that, we simply just fill out the rest of these nodes here. So every single node that gives you adjacent map chance is now 4%. All these nodes here. So whatever you got to do, to get these nodes, just each one of these. I'm just doing this in real time so you can see. It doesn't even matter what order you're doing these. You can even take Dance of Destruction or Wellspring of Creation, if you're in a weird situation where you need more tankiness or less or whatever. Do that. These are an interesting choice here. You're going to get a lot of Keurig Mission, 30% increased pack size. I kind of feel like that would be good to take. Probably not yet, however. At this point, we have 124. Let's see if I'm missing anything. I don't think I am. Too bad. Here, well, I'd probably go up here just to get these on the back end. Oops, there we go. Do it here. And I believe this is every single one of these. Now, from here, I'm going to start running some Keurig Master Mission, probably at around 68, and we'll at least begin. So I do kind of like the idea of only spending 3 points here. So actually, here is the sort of point right here is where the divergence may happen. Again, I think this is a terrific way to begin Atlas. So every time you run a map, you're guaranteed to have a map drop that's adjacent, literally guaranteed. And I'm guessing it's coded as in a 40% chance for it to happen again. Not 100% sure on that. But anyway, this is where you're going to diverge. Now, it kind of depends on whether you want to focus on starting to find more items, or you want to focus on getting as many map drops period as possible, or you're focus on getting like duplicated maps and while keeping things a little easier. So your choice is basically either to finish out the wheel here and maybe get the middle, or to focus on all the map duplicated nodes to give you more maps but keep things fairly easy. Or I think the most potent option Again, I'll probably take those. Will actually be to do something like this. This is probably what I'll do, assuming my build can handle it. Oops, see, we don't want to do that. Watch out for this right here, you know. This stupid waypoint here, which we're definitely not going to do. There's no point in doing gateways when literally the best nodes for us in this situation are the small nodes that travel alongside. So once we get all of these, which is 4% increased effect modifiers, non-unique maps, this is going to make our maps harder. And you know, we are all definitely already going to be doing yellow maps and red maps, getting into red maps. So all the maps are going to be rare. And the red maps are going to be corrupted. Some of them are going to be kind of hard. So again, if you're a little scared of how hard this is going to make the maps, because it is going to make them a little hard, fine. But you know, if I'm not putting any league mechanics into the maps, I don't really care about the success of leveling still at this point. I think it's best to just go ahead and make the maps harder. It's not a big deal. There's no league mechanics to worry about. It's whatever. From here, I will probably just kind of take these harbingers, you know, 60% or 30% chance upon a harbinger. I'm going to, you know, improve my chance of dropping maps and maybe getting a little bit of magic find involved. Not going to be on gear or whatever, but, you know, just the off chance you get like a crazy, amazing item to drop on day one. We all pray for that jackpot drop, unique drop that's amazingly valuable in day one, but maybe not in like day 3. And this will help with the chances of that. So this is, again, the divergence. In my case, just giving you a game plan, going top row into the wheel in the center, and then the remaining points with a lot of points to spare. Again, still clearing out red maps. We're just going to get all of the map duplicated nodes. All of them. Not going for singular focus, obviously, yet. But, I mean, it's so simple and easy to understand. We're not taking any league mechanics whatsoever, really. On a side point, you could, you know, this wouldn't be a bad idea to give yourself a 60% chance to spawn Harbinger. Now, the reason you might want to get Harbinger in there at some point is because Harbingers do spawn a lot of magic and rare monsters, and they don't take long to kill, and those monsters do drop maps. But in my opinion, it's probably more important to just focus on maps, because I'm getting up to a 36% chance for maps to be duplicated. At this point, I'm in high-tier red maps. This has some pretty big ramifications. If I drop a synthesis map, or Elder Influence, Shaper Influence, Conquer Influence maps, it'd be duplicated. That's crazy amount of value if we're talking day one. Very big value indeed. So I think this is kind of the tree that I'm going for. And this leaves me with, I guess, 5 points to spare. Now, I probably won't have enough points to do maybe everything, so maybe I don't put these points in Harbinger. I don't know. But anyway, this is a very pretty Wandering Path Atlas unlocking ASAP, 100% focused on unlocking your Atlas as fast as possible. This is what it kind of looks like. And yes, indeed, it's going to make the maps harder on the top, so you could save the top row for the very end if you wanted to. I think it's going to be good either way. So let me know if you have any questions on that or suggestions. Also, you can let me know if I missed a single. Oh, I did miss one. Sorry, there we go. I knew I've missed one. This one right here. It's a little tricky to find. But here we go. I'm going to link this atlas in the description, of course. So it's there for you if you want to see it. Hopefully everything is nice and pretty. It's with 4 points to spare, so that would be the feared and a few other invitations. You can swap out and do something different if you want. At some point, obviously, you're going to want to swap to unlocking or to, you know, getting some league mechanics. So you're probably not going to take this literally all the way, because, you know, at this point, you've unlocked all of your maps. You've done all the unique maps. You've done all the regular maps. So you're not going to go all the way with this. So again, you have a few options here and things to draw back from. Again, maybe not Harbinger. I don't know. But anyway, this is, you know, these are all great options, in my opinion. Maybe you don't take the Kirik nodes down here. Maybe you don't take the Harbinger nodes back here. Maybe you start withdrawing from the Kirik nodes over here and then put them in somewhere else. But anyway, eventually you're going to have to swap out of this. And this is where it gets a little tricky, because any conventional mapping strategy for currency is probably not going to involve Wandering Path at the very beginning. It's certainly not going to look like this. So you're going to need to start doing league mechanics. So you are going to have to hang on to this Atlas strategy a little longer than you may like. This is kind of the downside, because the swap away from this, especially in my case where I'm going to swap to Grand Design, suddenly this tree doesn't work anymore at all. So I'm going to have to save up a ton of orbs of unmaking. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. At some point, you're probably going to do this too. Eventually, you're going to start doing this. So you're going to have to shuffle a few things around. Anyway, you're going to have to buy a bunch of orbs of unmaking, because I'm going to go from this to this. I'm going to go straight to my mausoleum strategy. That is what I put in perception versus reality video on Mausoleum. It was a grand design growing horde strategy where you just dump in, 4 rusted scarabs and call it a day. You're getting as many notables as you can. It's going to be amazing this league for farming essence on top of it. So basically it just has essence. It has strongbox just for fun. There's some shrine and strongbox nodes. You don't even have to take these, honestly, if you don't want. But anyway, the primary focus is on essence, getting as many notables as you can, and going Exarch for all of the amazing Exarch notables, which you can see over here. Hopefully you can read it. Try not to be in the way. But there are tons of amazing Exarch notables. So farming Exarch in the beginning is just going to load you up with bubblegum currency for essentially no investment cost whatsoever. You're going to have plenty of maps. I'm going to shift it over from Mausoleum to Jungle Valley because, Jungle Valley is also a map that doesn't spawn the boss. You won't even have to kill the boss except when the invitation is ready to drop. You could do this on Crimson Temple and Boss Rush if you want, but you really want no boss altars because you want all the Eldritch Minion altars to spawn. Look at the list on here. We're going to get Awakened Sexton, Binding Orbs, Horizon Orbs, Unmaking Orbs, Cartographer Chisels, Embers, Lesser, Greater, Grand Annulment Orbs, which is not going to happen hardly ever. That's as rare as the Divine Orb Altar. Val Orbs, still going to be worth a lot. And Kindling Orbs and Distilling Orbs are worth a lot in the first few days of the league. So are Orbs of Regret. Glass Blower Baubles are also, and Gem Cutter Prisms are worth super premium on the first few days of the league. Chaos Orbs, duh. Very good there. And then we have all of the scarabs here, which, some of these aren't worth very much, but we do have Reliquary and Divination down here, which will be good. Blight may also be pretty good. Metamorph, I don't know if it'll be very popular. Bestiary is supposed to be pretty popular this league. But anyway, a lot of garbage, rusted scarabs you're going to get from this, and you can just plug them in to your growing horde strategy anyway. Going back to this, I may take this point too. I guess I'll go ahead and put Stream of Consciousness in there for the free, probably for like the free chance of getting the lab to spawn, Uber lab to spawn, honestly, but I don't know. We'll see. I guess I'll leave the tree here. This is an overblown tree. It has more than you can spare, but it gives you all the options. Let you see what all the decent nodes are there. So I think that concludes my strategy. That is day 1 from Poisonous Concoction through to unlocking the Atlas, all the way into farming, beginning to farm in day 2 in Jungle Valley, T16, trying to unlock the bosses, hopefully. I don't know what the tier of Jungle Valley is. It doesn't matter because I'm going to unlock my Watchstones, 2 of them at least, by myself with Poisonous Concoction, and the other 2 either by myself or I'll just purchase the carry either way. No shame in that, because I need to get in on this strategy. Or rather this strategy, and start making as much currency as I can, so maybe I could transition over into Poison Tornado Shot and get all the gear pieces for that, and then start doing some other stuff, which we'll get into at a later date. Alright, so that's it for this video. Good luck on your league start. Again, ask any questions you have in the comments. Sorry I wasn't able or never really had time to super flesh out the leveling portion of this guide. I know I don't have, the skill, or I guess, the alternate skills setups, links at Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, or the gear set stuff. But anyway, it's a great template you can use, and hopefully it will serve you well in your league start. So I bid you adieu for now. I will see you at another date. I will be live streaming on Twitch, my league start, in case you were wondering, and so you can find me there. And I hope to see you there. All right, so see you there. Bye for now.